1700. India represents 25% of the global economy, quarter of all world wealth. The Mughal Empire runs trade surpluses, exports textiles, spices, manufactured goods. Gold and silver flow into India from every direction. Bengal alone is richer than all of Britain. This is the wealthiest region on earth. 1701. British leave India. The economy now represents less than 4% of global output, from 25% to under 4%, in 2.5 centuries. Where did that wealth go? 21 percentage points of global GDP vanished, transferred, extracted. Economists calculate it at $45 trillion in today's money, more than the current combined GDP of United States and China. Gone. This wasn't stolen at gunpoint, wasn't plundered in raids, wasn't taken as war booty. It was invoiced, billed, accounted for, extracted through the most sophisticated financial extraction system ever devised, through fake charges, through guaranteed profits, through forcing a nation to pay for its own occupation, through turning empire into a business and colonization into accounting. This is financed through time, and this is how Britain taught the world that the most profitable theft is the kind you can put on a balance sheet. 1757, Battle of Plassey. East India Company defeats the Nawab of Bengal. History books call this a military victory. It was, but that's not why it mattered. The real prize wasn't territory, wasn't conquest, was taxation authority. The company gained Diwani, the right to collect revenue, to tax Bengal, to control the treasury. This transformed everything. The East India Company stopped being a trading company, became a tax collection agency, a revenue extraction machine, with corporate shareholders in London and military enforcement in India. The perfect combination: private profit from public authority, corporate returns from sovereign powers. Bengal's wealth was legendary: agricultural surplus, manufacturing capacity, trade networks. The company now controlled all of it, not through production, through taxation, could simply take a percentage of everything produced, everything traded, everything that moved, without creating anything, without adding value, just extracting. And extract they did, ruthlessly, efficiently, systematically. Tax rates increased, collection became brutal. No concern for agricultural cycles, no consideration for harvest failures, just extraction, maximum revenue, continuous flow to company coffers, to London shareholders, to British creditors. 1770, famine strikes Bengal. 10 million people die, 1/3 of the population, starvation, disease, collapse. And through it all, the company continues collecting taxes, continues extracting revenue, continues paying dividends. Famine is local problem. Shareholder returns are sacred obligation. The system doesn't pause for death, doesn't adjust for catastrophe, just extracts. This is when the model becomes clear. This isn't empire in the traditional sense. This is corporate vampirism. Systematic extraction designed to maximize returns regardless of cost, to drain wealth continuously, to treat a civilization as a revenue stream, to reduce people to tax base, and to do it all legally, contractually, with proper accounting. But taxation alone wasn't enough. The extraction needed to be more sophisticated, more systematic, more impossible to trace or challenge. So the British invented home charges, the most brilliant accounting fraud in history, the perfect crime hidden in plain bureaucratic sight. Here's how it worked. India had to pay Britain for services. What services? The cost of occupying India, the salaries of British soldiers stationed in India, the pensions of retired British administrators who'd worked in India, the interest on loans Britain took to build infrastructure in India. Everything Britain spent on controlling India, India had to repay, with interest. Think about that structure. You invade a country, you send soldiers to occupy it, you install administrators to govern it, you take loans to build railways for extracting its resources. Then you send the bill to the country you invaded. Make them pay for their own occupation, for the privilege of being colonized, for the costs of their own subjugation. The accounting was meticulous. Every British salary, every pension, every loan payment, itemized, documented, invoiced to India, called home charges because the money went home, to Britain, as payment for services rendered, services that consisted entirely of maintaining control over India. This wasn't hidden, wasn't secret, was official policy, published in budgets, audited by accountants, completely legal. Because Britain wrote the laws, controlled the accounting, defined what constituted legitimate charges, and decided that forcing colonies to fund their own occupation was perfectly reasonable. The amounts were staggering. By late 19th century, home charges consumed massive portions of Indian revenue, money that should have funded development, should have built Indian infrastructure, should have stayed in Indian economy, flowing to Britain, year after year, decade after decade, generations of extraction, all properly invoiced, all legally documented, all impossible to challenge within the system that created it. Railways. The British love talking about railways, their gift to India, their contribution to modernization. The infrastructure that connected the subcontinent built civilization, brought progress. Except, look at the map. Look at where the railways actually go. The lines don't connect Indian cities to each other, don't link population centers, don't facilitate internal trade or domestic commerce. They connect resource extraction points to ports, cotton fields to Bombay Harbor, grain regions to Calcutta docks, mineral deposits to coastal shipping. The railways were built to extract, to move wealth from interior to coast to Britain, as efficiently as possible. And here's the beautiful part for British investors. The railways were built with guaranteed returns, 5% annual profit, guaranteed by Indian taxpayers. If the railway made money, investors got paid. If the railway lost money, Indian Treasury covered the difference. Zero risk investment, guaranteed profit, backed by colonial taxation. Think about this structure. British investors fund railway construction. Railways built to extract Indian resources. Profits guaranteed by Indian taxes. If railways succeed, Britain profits from moving Indian wealth to British ships. If railways fail, India pays investors anyway. Britain wins either way. India loses either way. This is privatized profit and socialized risk perfected. The colonial version of modern public-private partnerships. Build infrastructure that serves external interests. Guarantee returns to foreign investors. Make local population absorb all downside. Call it development. Call it progress. Call it civilization. When it's extraction infrastructure with guaranteed returns funded by the people being extracted from, the railways weren't development aid, were wealth extraction systems with profit guarantees, were corporate infrastructure funded by colonial subjects, were the physical manifestation of how empire works, not through force alone, through financial structures that make resistance irrelevant because the system is legal, documented, and enforced by the institutions it created. Between 1765 and 1938, India transferred approximately $45 trillion to Britain, in current value. Conservative estimate. Some economists suggest higher. But even at $45 trillion, the scale is incomprehensible. That's everything produced in the United States and China combined for an entire year, extracted over less than 2 centuries. This wasn't one heist. It was continuous extraction, year after year, through taxation, through home charges, through guaranteed railway profits, through currency manipulation, through forced trade terms, through every mechanism available, all legal, all documented, all impossible to challenge, because Britain controlled the law, the courts, the military, and the accounting. And when India finally gained independence in 1947, the system didn't end. It evolved, transformed, updated for the post-colonial era, same extraction mechanisms, different terminology, same structural adjustment, different institutions, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, structural adjustment programs, developing nations taking loans, with conditions, with requirements, with austerity measures, with privatization demands, with currency restrictions, with all the mechanisms that force policy changes, that extract wealth, that maintain dependency, that ensure debt service takes priority over development. This is the home charges model updated, the guaranteed railway returns modernized. The colonial extraction system adapted for an era that formally rejects colonialism while maintaining its financial structures. Different flags, different rhetoric, same mathematics, same extraction, same flow of wealth from poor to rich, from periphery to core, from former colonies to former empires. The mechanisms are familiar. Take loans for infrastructure that serves external interests more than domestic needs. Guarantee returns to foreign investors. When debt becomes unsustainable, impose austerity, cut social spending, privatize assets. Open markets. Ensure debt service continues even as development suffers. The empire never ended. Just became financial instead of territorial. Became contractual instead of military. Became spreadsheet instead of battlefield. $45 trillion. Extracted through accounting, through legal structures, through forcing a nation to pay for its own occupation, through railways that extracted resources while guaranteeing profits to foreign investors, through home charges that made colonization a billable service, through systems so sophisticated they looked legitimate, so well documented they seemed legal, so thoroughly institutionalized they became unchallengeable. This is the real history of empire. Not glorious conquest, not civilizing mission, systematic extraction through financial mechanisms, through turning sovereignty into accounting entries, through making theft legal by writing the laws, through ensuring that every rupee extracted could be traced to a proper invoice, a legitimate charge, a contractual obligation. The British didn't just steal India, they invoiced it, billed it, charged it for the privilege of being colonized, and made the accounting so complex, so layered, so thoroughly legal, that challenging it required dismantling the entire system, which took 2 centuries, and even then, the financial structures survived. Evolved, continued under different names with different institutions, but identical mathematics. This is finance through time. We follow the money to show you that empires are accounting systems that happen to have armies. Did the British home charges and 5% railway guarantees surprise you? Don't modern highway guarantees you pay for roads you never use, or billions in IMF interest payments, look like modern copies of the same system? Let's discuss in the comments